we've got the live stream up and going. Jeremy will be here in a little bit. I snagged other snacks from.
You have to snag a remote for this.
Let's see. This way. But
You got some
I
special.
don't see a remote. Do you see a remote?
No, they're probably using it next door. You know, I've always had to get it from another room.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Well, when we got locked out, they said the problem was that there were
message.
power problems in this building, so maybe that's part of that deal. I
Hello.
hope
Are you
that's
here?
not the case, but
Okay. Let me come get you. Sorry, I just had to fix the live broadcast. I'm having problems with the video monitor in this room. So let me see what I can do. All right.
yeah, when the staff person let us in, said they were having electrical issue. So I hope that's not impacting the screen deal. But you would think if it was a problem, it would be everything wouldn't be working. You know what I mean? Other things would be. I love technology, but not when it doesn't work. Then it kind of sucks.
Hi, Brian is my name.
I'm Trisha.
Tricia, it's a pleasure. This is Rhea.
Hi.
Hello.
I hate to interrupt the meeting next door. They got a room full and they might need their remote. Seems like there's always an on-off button.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of buttons down there, but I can't see what they say. Let's see. Let's see if I can fix that.
Any luck?
No, I can't see what they say.
Yeah, I snagged it from an event.
Well,
They're leftovers.
my apologies for being late for the
Oh, no, no
snacks, the
problem.
critical snacks.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, I'm Jeremy.
I'm fine,
Hi,
please, but we have
Okay.
some
Hi.
like freshy bowls.
See, here we go ahead.
The buttons aren't even labeled.
That's not nice.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, good to see you.
Normally it's not, you know, we haven't done it. Like this should be powered, and it doesn't seem to turn on.
Can we reoccupy the Quaker room? Anyone like a snack, sweet or savory? So we have bowls.
Well, if nothing else, what I can do is get us into the U of I room as the last resort.
Trinity, you like, it's all good to me.
Okay.
So they're all colleges.
How
I
many
didn't know that went.
No, they're like this one's Quaker. The one
Right,
next door is
so there
Quaker.
must be a Quaker
So,
college somewhere.
You know, some are sponsored by companies, some are sponsored by schools. The U of I space is not really open to the general public.
Right.
So
Then leave it.
ooh,
Cut.
let me
These bowls are okay, right?
get on the back channel. This, okay, that's still going.
There we go.
Let me get on.
And the next
Richie's
thing we have
Slack
sweet
channel to
and
see.
savoury if anyone's interested. And there was iced tea or water.
You got a remote, there we're getting
You
somewhere.
gotta find a remote. Okay, I'm gonna
Well,
post.
I got one from next door. That was a little chilly.
Oops.
I believe it.
Be sure to power down the monitor when you leave the room.
Everything else, what I'll do is I'll snag the key for the U of I room and we'll move.
Maybe it's just that it worked.
There's no one.
Yeah,
around.
unfortunately, yeah, like the staff isn't here.
Yeah.
The receptionist was in this meeting in Quaker, a little while
There
ago.
you go, you got something to work
Ooh,
on. Got a green light.
yay,
Yeah,
Button on the back
there we go.
okay.
must be a power surge adapter.
Well, they said they had a power issue here, and they
Okay.
let us in. It's the
Oh,
guy,
really?
the guy was trying to use his key card. The maintenance guy had to come and get us, and I stuck in because I always sneak in. I don't. I'm like, I'm not calling. I'm gonna get in here. The person in charge of this meeting doesn't need me bugging her. So, and then the maintenance guy said there's a power problem. So maybe they turned all the toys off. That would be my guess, right?
It's possible. It's entirely possible. Or, it could just be that, sometimes people, I think that's for the phone. I just connected the phone to make it easier to see the video feed.
Are these ice waiting for drinks?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
you're way ahead of the game. Wonderful.
And we have the cups here. Yeah, I know. I've been trying to run around. There were a couple things that I meant to do. I meant to try to snag. They have these little arrow dry erase boards to direct people. I was thinking about trying to snag one of those.
If I can actually get early next time, we can hang out by the door.
You want to book that?
Well, the CTA was having switching problems today, which is some weird link kind of because that usually happens in the winter when it's freezing cold.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
definitely.
Last time I was here.
Yeah.
I took
Well, that's-
precautions because I thought, well, I'm just gonna leave extra early because if I'm early,
And you're good.
I'm good because I left at 5:15 and I'm coming further north because I moved north, so I'm not quite sure, and I never trust the CTA anyways. So I was glad that I did that because if I would have left at 5:30,
Was it interlocking problems? That's their favorite.
switching,
Yeah.
switching. So if I would have left at 5:30, then I'd still be on the train. Because at Belmont, they were all messed up.
I'm too trusting of Google, and they say it'll
no,
take me
they
45 minutes. No, it won't
they
take.
lie. They lie.
Yeah.
That's just the outright lie. I cannot trust Google, especially when it comes to CTA, because CTA and Google are not in sync.
No, I had to drive.
Do you want these all opened up?
Mm-hmm.
Yay, you got it to work.
Yeah, after fumbling,
That's okay.
don't know that it'll be the same the next time, but for now, it seems like it was different before.
You guys are all technical, so it's supposed to be that way. I'm not technical, so if it screws up for me, it's a given. It's a given, and I'm not going to really know how to fix it. I leave that to my husband. He's much more patient with gadgets than me. I'm like, which button do I push? None. Oh, okay. I can do it. I just have to calm myself down, get myself into the.
Yeah, you have to be
Yeah.
in the right state of
I'm
mind.
not totally not
No,
technical. I
Not
just
freaking out about how you can't do it.
yeah.
Well,
Bring that
it's
back
just,
up.
some of it is just a pain. Some of the things that you have to do, or you wait for updates, and then it takes half an hour to do it,
And then you got to log
you have
out
to
and log
click
in.
OK or something.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you don't click OK, you're in trouble.
I'm bad. I leave
So.
my computer. I have an old Sony that's still running on Vista because
Wow.
It runs. You have to give me
Get
credit.
rid
It
of
did
this.
have a
When it
virus.
runs, it's probably a host for several bots
Well,
that are
no,
going to
I
run
know,
denial
no,
of
no,
service
I-
attacks.
I know I had to go on tech support with Norton for like 3 hours because it did get a virus, and it shut you guys down, and I didn't realize it shut you guys down. It was a nasty one.
Mm.
So then they had to uninstall and reinstall. I was on some guy from India, I had to finally go because it started at 8 o'clock at night and it was like midnight. I'm like, I don't know what time it is where you're at, but I'm out. And so then I had to go on like a day later. But the screen on it is so nice. And
It's an old computer,
but
it's
it's a nice laptop.
Mm.
It's the challenge is that I have to wipe it. So I'm slowly getting everything off of there that I want. And then I have files of my father who's no longer with us that are in that Windows. And I don't know how to convert them to like some other format. I gotta be nice to all my geek friends. Okay, who the hell knows how to do this? And no, I cannot learn some software about video something. No. And no, it's an old computer, so no, I cannot download any more software to that. So how can I do this online quickly without, wanting? The good news is my sister has all the files, so if for some reason I can't get it to do what I want it to do, I won't lose it completely. But I would like to just back it up to this external hard drive and get it to work and play nice with my Chromebook. So I have more than one.
Oh, okay.
So,
Doing okay. How about you?
No problem like that with Chromebook.
oh no, I know. And I know the guy who
It's the way to
gave
go,
it to
really.
me. He's going to actually give me an older what is it? It's a Windows 10, but it's on a Lenovo. So I'll have a better Windows, even though I love hate Windows. Not that fond of Chromebook either. There's a lot of glitches with that sucker.
Really?
Anything but Apple, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, you don't like them?
Oh, you like it?
I
You have
switched over, what about like 2005? From PCs to a Mac. And, it took me a while to get used to it and I realized I was just making things a lot harder than it needed to.
Right, because it's a really...
And now I'm really used to it. I still, for what it is that I do on a day-to-day basis, I'm still on PCs, but
Right.
I don't have to really use it the way most people. So it's not like I've never seen like the new Windows startups or anything like that. And it does throw me because things have changed. The rules has changed, and and I deal on different versions of Windows. So sometimes it takes you a while to remember where things are.
What am
I just found there was almost nothing I wanted to do that I didn't have to download additional software for. I mean,
really?
File Explorer, right? Wonderful, simple piece of software. What do they call it? Finder? It's terrible. It's really hard. I mean, maybe you like it, but the nice tree, that's what you have to drill down. You can't see where you're going.
Yeah.
I have a heart attack. It took me 2 months to
it's okay.
give up.
It's quite all right.
The
The
Chromebooks
and now
like
I
you have
have
to
my
do all the applications you do anything
Right.
without download, and it doesn't have a lot of memory. I'm like, I know, and it keeps bugging you. Like, do you want this app? And pretty soon I'm giving it the finger. No, not this one either. Because it's like I keep saying no. If I wanted the app, I know how to download the app. No, I'm kind of annoyed with my toys. It gets up really quickly. So, but yeah.
So I passed out save the date cards. I have a deal.
Yes.
Right? Cool. For your Google to watch it. This is the annual tech conference that we have. I shouldn't say tech conference. Annual business owner conference that we have. And it'll be September 27th to 28th. And it is to work with business owners and show business owners how to implement technology in their business. So we have over 50 plus workshops. Everything's a la carte. It's 2 days. It's free to the business owners. It'll be at Malcolm X, and we will be having, before the end of the month, a full conference schedule out. So we're pleased to have been supported by Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and said they'll be there this year. Cool. So we talk about marketing programs, cybersecurity, booking, any number of things just to assist business owners in how to implement technology to grow their business. The great thing about it also is we have over 300 business owners who attend, so it's great networking.
Great. Where is that? Which one? What is
And
it?
Malcolm X is on Adams. It's right across from Rush.
Okay, so that yeah, so it's like
Yeah,
the west.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kind of centrally located. The city asked us when we started, this is our 6th annual conference, they asked us to try and centrally locate it so that they could be folks reach from all across the city.
Yeah.
The great thing about it is there's free parking
Oh,
and
okay.
it's right next to the L.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It's south of the UIC. I think it's on, is it on the green line, the pink line, or one of those?
Drivers. So.
Yeah. It is accessible.
Yes.
Because I've been over there, but it's been a while. I have a car. I just don't.
Right.
It's on Jackson.
Oh,
Moved
it's
there
there.
on Jackson Boulevard, so it's right off Jackson. Steedman, I think.
Yeah,
one side.
that sounds about right.
Yeah. And the great thing about it is it's in their new facility. They have a beautiful conference facility
Oh, good.
that all smart screens, smart computers, everything's all connected. So it's really neat. And it's all enclosed as well.
Cool.
So is there some sort of qualification for attending? Or?
No.
Okay.
Do you have,
I'm back.
will there be
Right.
things also for nonprofits?
Yes.
So
I
it's
should
not
say
just small business.
it's
Yeah.
small business and nonprofits. And we
Yeah.
include nonprofits as business as well. It's just for-profit and nonprofit.
Right.
So you could be in business, you could be thinking of starting your business.
Right. That's great.
So it's a lot, and we have a lot of nonprofits that attend. Good networking, and we work to have exhibitors as well, so that Microsoft will be there. They bring their device bar. We've had certain banks that come and talk to the business owners. AT&T was there last year. They brought their devices, and some of the other exhibitors. The treasurer's office from the state has been there, so we try to engage. We engage those agencies, city and state, that have offerings that support business owners, that have different programs that can support it.
And the other thing too, Eli was telling me that if I get like September, October, November, he'll do a push for me. So remind me if he's going to do a push, we'll see if we can also get him to push out a link to your tech
That would
course.
be great. That
So-
would be great.
So Eli seems to be a legend in his own
Yeah,
lifetime.
Eli is he's in Vancouver, Canada,
Yes.
and he is an employee of TechSoup, and he is the person that is responsible for managing and coordinating all of these NetSquared
Yeah.
groups.
Okay.
So like he handles like the setting up Meetup credentials, getting people who take on the responsibility of becoming organizers, making sure they have like administrative credentials.
Trying to get back to the screen.
Yes.
Just hit the arrow.
And the one thing that he and TechSoup are trying out is something called Open Collective. So and it looks pretty cool. It's a virtual online bank account for us because NetSquared, we are not. This is not anyone I want to talk to. Okay. So since NetSquared aren't official nonprofits, and you don't have an actual bank account attached to these meetup groups, but meetup groups still, do like to have, there are times you have paid events or other types of things. So this is a way, we have a virtual bank account now. So if people can contribute, if you want to contribute toward, running the group. And the other thing too is that it will be a way for everybody in the group to see how that money gets spent.
Okay.
So, so what it goes towards, all of that, information. But some of the point is that it's public. And like if eventually if we have enough money, maybe if you take a picture of your receipts or whatever, you buy snacks. Down the road, hopefully what we can do is have you take a picture of your receipt, submit an expense report through the Open Collective, and then hopefully Eli will approve your
Right.
your
Well, you know,
and then the only thing, I guess, the one thing that you need to have is a PayPal account in order. That's how the money would actually physically get to you. So for the most part, people have PayPal accounts, so I don't think that'll be a big deal.
not talking big bucks here.
I understand. And
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll come down.
They should be away from me
Yeah.
anyways.
pass things around. So I guess overall, with the snacks tonight, having the freshie bowls turned out okay. Because today, I don't necessarily put money towards, like cups and things like that. Normally, I can scrounge things here.
For free. Let's fill this up. Good for that. And
Yeah, because there are a lot of events, That's where this comes from, because there was an event earlier today that there was left over, so I just snagged it from them. And the other thing too, just seeing some of the things that Eli does, just for down the road, if people like these ideas. Eli also is the organizer for NetSquared Vancouver, so he actually, does what I do, and that's kind of how he got his job. But one of the things that they're doing is a picnic, just like a straight up social event. So I don't know if people would like. We can always do something like that, and then we were talking a while back about trying to do a nonprofit fair so that we can try to get exposure for nonprofits, try to bring nonprofits, people that might be interested in volunteering for nonprofits, but don't really know how to get involved or aren't sure who they want to work with. So, just a way to try to bring people together so that they can find out what types of things people are working on, how to get involved, how to donate, how to, those types of things. And so that's a bigger project. I'm not sure exactly when we'll be able to do that, but that's some of the reason that I signed up for the Open Collective, because if you know anybody that thinks they might be interested in becoming a sponsor or working with us on that, Open Collective is a way where we can show them where their money, and how we're using your money so that they don't think that I'm just embezzling all their funds. And who knows, maybe I'll be tempted.
So tell me more about Open Collective.
Yeah, I wish I have this going, so I'll show you here on my phone. So I have to completely, hopefully you don't mind looking on a phone here. So that's what it looks like. You can scroll through here. And I haven't fully set this up. It looks like you can set up different kinds of levels. Right now, there are only 2 levels for us. One which is $5, one which is $100. But if I go in and set it up, looks like we can do other types of things. The other thing too that Eli was saying, if we do like a bigger thing like this nonprofit fair, and we do get somebody that wants to donate a larger amount of money, he was saying that what we can do is let him know, and if they can maybe write that money out to NetSquared or TechSoup will deposit it in their account, so that they can get the 501c3 donation credit. But he was saying that probably isn't going to be worth going through all of those steps, for smaller contributions. Not that if anybody's interested in a smaller contribution, that we would turn it down. So,
when is that Soup has been around a long time, right? It's been started in San Fran or something.
Yeah, it's still in San Francisco. I'm not exactly sure when it started. I don't know if you want to. That's the website. I did put a link on the meetup, for tonight in the comments about this, so you can always find it there. I'll be adding it, and then when I send out my next, the other thing too, remind me. Let me take this down. Because we have two new meetups. August and September are set, and after tonight, at some point, I'm going to send out an email to all of our people, and I want to make sure to leave myself a note to add tech their information. Okay.
And how many members are on the meetup group now?
I think we're like 500, 600. Let me see. I think it'll give me an account if I look at the page. Now, how active we're at 607. So
For
how
Chicago?
active people are? Yeah, for Chicago. Worldwide, I don't know that figure. Eli,
Okay.
607 for,
for NetSquared Chicago, yeah.
that's a huge number.
Yeah, and like not everybody is particularly active. I think some. I don't know if it's that some people were active, and the group has been active and inactive and active and inactive, and
So at one time, someone signed up on the meetup,
right,
and then
yeah. But with a lot of meetup groups, you have large numbers, and not everybody turns out. So
I wonder.
It's been a learning experience.
I wonder if you can do some kind of just a networking event, just kind of to draw people back in, and just introduce yourself and have an opportunity for them to.
Yeah, I mean, having a pre-existing contact list like that would be a really useful thing. But I mean, they're probably also quite young, and they're probably quite motivated. So a lot of them probably aren't even
It depends, I think, because I've been a member for a long time, and initially when I came in, it was a lot of people that were older and had been in tech.
Oh, okay.
And then there were some young ones starting to come in, but it didn't seem like a young group to me.
Oh.
I don't know what the demographics are now, but I don't know. I know with some of those meetups you can ask, you can have a survey kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one of those things that I've been thinking about doing is creating a survey and haven't actually managed to make myself sit down and do it. But
well, I would say the first survey would be is if they want to do a networking event and what would that look like for them, and then maybe you can pull out some of that demographic with the same survey. See, virtual's nice, but in person much better.
yeah, it helps. Just want to make sure that.
No, created a whole new document just in blabbing away.
Well, I know that we start.
I'm just going to do one last sweep. And
I know that we start after 7 or so, unless I'm wrong.
yeah, I try to start at 7.
Okay.
But
So what I'm doing
it's
now,
not a hard and fast rule.
since
So
my-
if you need more time, take.
no, I'm just cleaning up. Some of my links didn't transfer from my desktop to this device. So rather than fool around to figure out what went wrong, I'll just create a whole new set of links. That's what I'm doing.
So how long does Tech Thursday take?
This will be the 6th year. It's, started about 50 business owners on the southwest side. They grew to 100. Daily college and grew to 100 a day. At Mountain, now we're over.
Okay, don't see anybody looking confused or.
So it's grown quite a bit. We have been very fortunate, Brian. So I worked creating the workshop, the a la carte workshop. So this year, the workshops are really they were based to give you like an aha moment, not there to train you on how to use the application in the past, but we're going to have some labs this year. So some of the challenges we saw, just all of us, you come to a workshop, you get really excited, and then you go and you get busy. So you never get the thing done that you get excited about. So for example, we'll have some workshops on, how to dial reports on a website, and then have one that so you can actually create a website or get something up quickly. And so there'll be a few there. We're excited to have some workshops. We tried to, we have been able to, which is really exciting, bring in the corporations that manufacture the products. So for example, it's really great when you have Google explain Google Analytics. And you can understand the why it was created, what it's supposed to be used for, and the presenters have been excellent that they provide for us. They're able to take the application and then just dissect it so that a non-techie can understand it. So we spend a lot of time with them letting them know the audience that they're working with so that they're not talking to programmers or talking to developers, but they're talking to business owners and high-level people in the business who need to know what this tool is for and how to implement it. Right. So that's working with. And then that's good. We have a lot of fun, a lot of knowledge. We've gotten good feedback. So we'll keep it going. And each year we try to find more exciting topics. We have business owners present. That's always great, though, is to have a number of small business owners present their products and services, that they present some of the tools and how they implement them, so that you can get firsthand experiences of how a person is using it in their business and how it's helped their business along with the manufacturer who's developed. We're going to have some things on virtual reality. I use those at Microsoft, talked about that. They talked about it a little bit last year. But we'll have them back in. We use it virtual reality, particularly marketing your product.
Well, the big thing is videos now. Everybody's using videos.
We had one of our presenters, thank you for bringing that up, talked about the use of video and photography and how to use that in marketing your business. He's a photographer, he's a videographer. He spent a lot of time in helping and business owners understand what tools to use, what photos should look like, to give you that image and that look that you're looking and feeling for your website and for your business presentation. And his was well attended.
Yeah, because that's confusing. That's a whole, the whole branding thing is confusing for people. And then on top of it, how do you incorporate videos and photos? And the consistency is hard because.
And then we talk about crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, how to get money into your business in non-traditional ways, crowdsourcing, how to get resources into your business. So, pick and choose. And the sessions run for 50 minutes. Getting it right.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell, there's a group called Venture Hub that's on the west side, and they're struggling a little bit because the one that started it came out of business, but he was a salesperson. So he had products to sell. This whole thing of, he's done a lot of research, but they're still struggling to get funding because, it's a whole new world and it's a whole different thing. When you have a product to sell somebody and you have vendors and clients, it's, if you're a good salesperson and you know how to create relationships, you're good. He did really well at that, but this is a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
So he's been, I'll let him know about this,
Yeah,
this
thank
conference because he might not only, want to attend. I think the biggest pitfall I see is that he has not partnered with people he's in Hermosa. And I'm like, you gotta go out to North, whatever, there's a college right on the highway that just built that crazy looking building on the expressway, North, whatever. Anyway, there's a couple of technical schools that are out on that side of town, okay. Fullerton and Pulaski and Cicero out that way. And I just think he's got to find out who his neighbors are and who the schools are out there that can get. He wants to have like an innovative place for people to get together, but I don't think he knows what that area, what's missing. So I think he needs to do a little R&D. I think he's one of these that has ideas in his head and ideas too.
It's not a translator.
And I have all these thoughts in my head, but then the reality is, okay, what does this really look like? And so a lot of really good ideas, but I think it's just a matter of kind of honing them in and figuring out, okay, strategy, and then who can I partner with? And that's,
So what I'm hearing from you is that you would find it useful if I find somebody that would be a speaker for producing photography and video.
well, I just know that that's huge.
Okay.
That's just that's been my experience with working with. I like marketing, so anything that I do is always going to have some sort of marketing because that's what my training is, and so that's just, I can see how people would struggle with that.
Because I'm always happy to hear what people are needing to know, because I will tell you that for the most part there is no master strategy. It is mostly me finding people and people who are willing to come out and talk.
Well,
so
if you ever want to brainstorm,
You have a 5-year plan to take over the world.
yeah, exactly. So some of this is just
well, it's timing, but
No, things just
yeah.
Spread the opportunity.
I just do.
Some serendipity there.
Yeah, I attend a lot. There's a person named Dean De La Salle, and he's a social media guy, and he's built his business over the last 15, 20 years in Chicago, and he does webinars every week on all the tools that are out there. And so I don't hardly use any of the tools, but the thing is, even if you just listen to his webinars that are free, you get these little tips on stuff, and it's like, oh, I never thought of that. Crap.
But how do you attract an audience? I mean, there's so many people generating content. That's what distinguishes your
No. He gets in anybody that knows about content marketing, about branding, people that have been in that for more than a week. I mean, and so he is very good at partnering. And he doesn't say what he does. He has a thing called Social Jack. So what he does, his company helps you do a strategy for your business on social, whatever that looks like for you, because some companies could find their customers at Facebook. Some of them are not going to find them there. They're going to find them on Pinterest it depends on what your business is, where you're going to find your customers. So he's good at that.
Speaker in March that also, he has a slightly different strategy on how to work with social media. I think if you're interested, you can watch his talk. I think it was the first time I did the live stream. So I think it's the March one. Okay, great. And this is his philosophy is like you were saying, that there's just so much content out there that's being created.
Right.
So his approach has been more of an analytical one, where he tries to figure out what your organization is doing, and then he goes through and does different keyword searches. And what he tries to do is, if good content is already out there and produced, you know, he tries to make sure that you're like sharing that, and then it's visible that what you're doing is sharing, you know, valuable information with people. And he was saying that he's seen good results that way, where people don't necessarily feel you're talking at them, but helping them find solutions to their problems. Yeah. So if you like that kind of idea, it's kind of a long presentation, and obviously he can, if you're interested in that approach, if you talk to him.
I've been interested in a presentation from you about what your software that you're does.
Okay. Well, at some point I will. I'm not opposed to doing that. I just don't know that I'm quite far enough along to where that would actually fill more than 15 minutes. but
you have a
right.
concept.
I have an idea. I have an idea, and so, you know, right now some of it is figuring out where to start, where I can find funding. So I was telling you, you know, some of the nice thing about 1871 is that you have a lot of networking opportunities here. And so just also for your information, Grant Hensel and Nonprofit Megaphone is a startup out of 1871. And so he's going to talk. So if you wanna come, you know, in August, and you can meet him and you can try to see if you would like him for your Tech Thursdays.
Oh, okay.
Because their whole business is trying to help people
I think
maximize.
we're working with them right now.
Who's
Yeah.
that?
Nonprofit Megaphone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his team is considering partnership with us as we work to represent their tools to about 25 different nonprofits.
That's very cool.
So their big deal is helping people get the Google grant, and can do something to help people get that grant.
And the other thing for you as well, Cassie, who's going to do September, I don't know her personally, but she is big with Salesforce and Salesforce for nonprofits. So, and she is, you know, an active participant in like Salesforce nonprofit. So I don't know if you know her, or if you want to, or if you're, you know, dealing with Salesforce, but Salesforce is also big for nonprofits.
Yeah, we haven't dealt with Salesforce recently. They presented on one of our first or second Tech Thursday conferences, so it would definitely be good to reconnect with them again.
Because they're somebody that isn't affiliated with TechSoup, so that's one thing. And you know, they give 10 licenses for free to nonprofits.
If you know how to use them.
Well, that's some of the. There are upsides and downsides. Like Salesforce is a very powerful tool, but you need people that understand it, how to maximize it, and how to, you know, set it up for you to be able to.
You have to be really geeky. I went to one Salesforce just to see what their. I know what it is, but I have not used it. So I went to like a 3-hour workshop, and I was like, I am way not technical enough for what the hell ever that was. Holy, I just sat there like, oh my God, it's awesome, but there is no dumbing down version. You really have to know your.
There are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a company called Pipeliner that's doing. It's a smaller company doing what Salesforce. Yeah. Only not with Salesforce. With their competition, but they're much.
That's brave.
No, I think it's actually smart, because some smaller businesses are. That's way too much. That's way too much. So if you go for a medium-sized market, you probably could. And if you offer enough training, because that's the other thing. When you're as big as Salesforce, and then you got to buy that license or whatever it is, and plus you have to get. There has to be a package, right, where you pay for training, and if you're not a big enough company, good luck. Or a nonprofit, right?
But again, it's a well-populated field.
Yeah, because like our last speaker that we had come out to talk about Salesforce, he used to be the CRM director for the Salvation Army for the Midwest region. Very, very nice guy, and he was very upfront about the fact that, you know, Salesforce is not for every nonprofit.
Right.
Because if you're not, right. So, you know, in his presentation, he had this, you know, cartoon picture of, you know, with a box of puppies saying free puppies. And he's like, Salesforce is like that because, you know, the puppy's free, but, you know, the care fee up, you know, the investment, right. You know,
That's a good analogy.
so.
So thank you for indulging me, folks.
Oh, no problem.
As I mentioned, I created some files so that we could have examples of what I was going to talk about today, and those files were created on my desktop, and I emailed the files over to Rhea because her Surface is what we've been using for presentations, and when you load those files up on any devices, you have to link them so they talk to each other. And it was going to be easier for me, since this is simple, just to reproduce the material. I wasn't thinking then to go through and try to create all the links. But that's okay. Next time I'll just produce it on her tool. You want to get started? And,
Sure. So.
and I'll take it.
Yeah, it's mostly I just wanted to make sure people watching at home can.
They'll know. They'll be like,
yeah,
yeah.
Next
Can't get
time.
those text unless I actually go to the meeting.
Exactly. We'll try to bribe people. No problem. So yeah. Well, welcome to the NetSquared Meetup, and Brian is going to talk to us about Word. This is the last one of a series of 3. About how to use Microsoft Office products most effectively for nonprofits. And he was, you know, if you ever need PowerPoint help, you can watch the live stream, you know, recording of his last presentation, because that was really good. I give it 2 thumbs up.
All right, 2 thumbs up. No toes? Okay, all right, I'll take the thumb.
2 toes too.
Toes too. Thank you. And thank you, folks. I'm sorry, I forgot your name again. Just Tricia. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about how the discussions from workshop 1, we were talking about Excel. Workshop 2, where we were talking about PowerPoint, and tonight Word, how these tools can be integrated to make life easier for nonprofits. And last week we talked about the mindset and effort that has to go into how to create a presentation in PowerPoint, as opposed to a lot of focus on the tools. We did talk about some of the tools, but not any of the heavyweight ones, because the tools come after you start to understand how you mentally have to prepare to produce. It's almost like producing a small TV show. You're almost storyboarding what you're putting together in your presentation. But you know, the great thing about what we did last time is it's good preparation for putting together what we call on the marketing side sell sheets or marketing sheets for a nonprofit or for a business, because where we were putting together a 20 or 30 page presentation last week, this week we were talking about putting together 1, 2, 3, 4 page piece that might go out to an audience without the ability to explain to them what's going on, so that they can actually go through that piece, that 1, 2, 3, 4-page piece, and get a feeling for what the nonprofit is attempting to get across to. Sometimes that audience is a board member audience. We produce a lot of reports that have to go out to board members, quarterly reports, annual reports, event-related reports, status reports. When you begin to understand how some of these types of documents can be linked, everything from the data that I put into an Excel spreadsheet to the visualization of that data in a PowerPoint presentation to the distribution of that data in a Word document, you begin to say, well, wow, if I'm creating my data in Excel and then I'm going to be making a presentation to my board, but then I need to mail this stuff out, email this stuff out to folks, I'm moving a lot of data around. And you know what happens when you begin to move a lot of data around. You now have to double, triple check everything because stuff happens, right? You updated your PowerPoint spreadsheet, but oh my gosh, I forgot to update the email document. It's got my table in it. I just sent it out. Oh, God. Right. Okay. So with that in mind, it's important to understand that using Excel as a data source, you can link the visuals produced in Excel to all of these other documents, so that when we change the data in Excel, it'll automatically change our PowerPoint, it'll automatically change our Word document, which then we can easily convert to a PDF. What I decided to do in talking about Word, understanding that all of us have used Word to some extent, some more successfully than others, I wanted to bring up some of what I think are important points if we're talking about Word from a nonprofit standpoint. And I've handed out the 7-page takeaway to help with any effort you might have when it comes to doing this sort of, or using these sorts of tools and enhancements on your own. In last month's presentation, we took a look at something, Trish, that was called Edgar Dale's Cone of Experience. It was this image. And we were going through how this particular image, with all of that crowd of information, could be presented in PowerPoint. So I brought that up today because I wanted to use this as the example of the image that I was cutting and pasting into my Word document. Because often if we're sending materials out to folks in correspondence, we're going to be inserting some images or information that we didn't necessarily generate. Okay. And unfortunately, all the images that we have as options to input into Word or import into Word, paste into Word, they're not necessarily designed to go into the sort of document that you're. So we're going to talk a bit about how we can modify these for the best presentation. We're also going to talk about how you can actually manipulate this document in ways that make it more appealing than the sort of material that we get on a daily basis, the correspondence we get on a daily basis, so that we can actually get our audience capture and retain their interest. Remember that we're talking correspondence here, so this isn't like a PowerPoint where the presenter can be fully animated, bring people in. Sometimes PowerPoint presentation, it's not even the PowerPoint, it's the presenter, right? In this particular case, there is no presenter. So this has to stand on its own. So the content has to be written well, that's a whole nother story. The data has to be meaningful, but then it's got to be presented in a way that's engaging. Really got to show that there was some some thought put into the info. So with that in mind, what I've done is I've produced these individual shapes. I say shapes because they're not all rectangles, but you'll know them because they're yellow. And they have not only what I'm referring to as the effort, in this case, it's Shakespeare, but also in parentheses, it'll identify where you can find the elements of creating that shape or performing that function. So in this case, to produce this rectangle, you would go into Insert, and then you would go under Shapes, and it'll give you a chart of shapes that you can click on and pull into your document. And you can add your fill colors and things. This is important because often if we're sending something out, we're interested in highlighting certain sections of correspondence. And just like I wanted to highlight what's going on right here, and I created a shape that's transparent, it's an oval. But that oval is surrounding what's Edgar Dale's cone of experience in Spanish translation. Now, I don't speak Spanish, but consider the fact that in these days, if you're a nonprofit and you're looking for donors, many of them might speak Spanish. What do you do when you don't have access to someone on your team that speaks Spanish effectively, fluently? Well, Word has an option that allows us to auto-translate individual sentences or full sections or entire. If you go into Review, which is here, you'll find a section that says auto-translate. If anyone wants to later, we can go ahead. Okay. A sidebar opens up and it asks you out of the 18 or so languages that are there. You highlight what you're looking to translate and say, how would you like to get this done? The language you want. So right then and there, Word is opening up a range of functionality to us, an opportunity to us that makes life a lot easier. Now, in RIA, in my experience, because we've translated at this point thousands of pages of content into Spanish for some of our clients, she'll tell you that translating the electronic or automated translation isn't the be all and end all of translation. It's not ready to go out the door. Okay. So our material goes to somebody that's certified, internationally certified in Spanish. And in some cases, we put together a group of individuals representing different Spanish-speaking communities in Chicago to translate, in this case, training manuals into colloquial Spanish. But what's important to note is, if I'm translating, if I need to translate this paragraph into Spanish, if I give this paragraph to 6 different people that are engaged in a different colloquial representation of Spanish, it's going to take a while for them to translate this first, and then they're going to come back to each one of those translations and look really different. Whereas if I can translate this whole thing into international Spanish first, international Spanish, using Microsoft Word, and then give that to them, there won't be nearly as much variation when we try to get to a standard. So this functionality allows us to not only have access to the languages, but it also, when we still need to tweak things, it gives us a starting point that makes life a lot easier because the collaborators are closer to what I'd like to call the truth that we want to deliver. This image is a cut and paste. I've got here no words because this is straight from the PowerPoint. This is a straight copy paste right from our original PowerPoint. But what I want to identify is how things begin to change effectively when you make a couple of simple adjustments. In this case, I took what we had and I added a shadow behind it. So now the image appears to float over the page. It also gives me an edge has disappeared. So immediately the eye is more drawn to this than to the original image. And if you go into format, click on this image, then click on format, right click on format, or go into format, sorry. Then you'll see options for creating borders around images. And some of the other borders that are available include a solid border whose width can be adjusted. There's also a brief bit of shadow behind that. This is another example of some of the shapes that end up coming out of your insert triangles, all geometric shapes. And here's a white border that's also a shadow in modern. Notice that we're able to not only put this sort of frame around our image, but we're also able to create a shape, text box shape. That's the exact same shape.
How do you create that shape?
This is an image that's available under shapes.
Oh, it's a big.
It's there. That's how many different options you've got. Yeah. You've got enough options to where you can actually come up with something that looks like that. So now when you're doing something and you want your audience to think that you've invested a lot of time and effort into this piece, remember, you're not going to be there with them. Think about the extra little touches that are available just by adding shadow, by producing something that is closely matching from an image standpoint. We'll talk about tables. And what's important when we're talking about tables, we know that we often have to produce content that's in table format as we begin to categorize things with columns and rows. We don't necessarily have to step outside to Excel, which can complicate something that's really simple. When we can go right into the insert tab and down to quick tables, and quick tables gives us options. And those options include inserting a table where we can choose the number of columns, number of rows we want. We can choose column width, all this. And now very quickly, rather than going into Excel, cutting and pasting, we can very quickly create something. You can use the same color scheme and color formatting that you've got throughout the rest of your document. But very quickly, we can pop in a table into our Word document. And again, that functionality is built into the tool.
Will it insert if you have something in Excel that you want to put in those boxes? Is there like a link that you can hide that'll bring in that data?
There's nothing that I can think of that will allow you to easily and effectively insert your cell data from Excel into this, transpose your cell data. But let me say this. In that case, it would be so much easier just to produce this in Excel and copy paste it if it's just going to be a one-time deal or link it,
right,
than to even try to figure out how to manipulate this. This is where you might want to create something that's going to be volunteer schedule for a 4-day event.
More text than not so much numbers.
Easier.
Yeah.
Right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then each of the 3 people that are volunteering, you're done. To do that in Excel, it's a lot of extra steps, not necessary. This is simple. This is the sort of thing you send in a correspondence to the volunteers. Hey, here's your schedule. Boom. Put that. We also know that nonprofits tend to have calendars somewhere in their world, if not everywhere, right? And I've seen a lot of variations with regard to how people produce calendars. Interesting when you see people produce them in Excel because it looks different from issue to issue that's produced. Okay? Well, again, under insert and quick tables, you've got tables like calendars that are already there. You can click and insert them. And from a click and insert standpoint, there are about a dozen or more different ways you can format this. Not just color, but style.
So I'm going to ask you at some point, and I don't want to divert you from the topic, but you talk about consistency of theme. And, you know, in some website builders and so forth, you have a color palette that gets applied across your whole website. And then you have styles in Windows that you can define your own styles in terms of, you know, headings, what fonts you're using, and so forth. When you're talking about PowerPoint, you said don't use a template, right? And your point was you didn't want like information taken up with the standard, you know, corporate logo and so forth.
Get into a template mindset.
Right. What I'm interested in is what kind of tools there are in Word for posing, you know, stylistic consistency and ensuring that you're not creating elements that don't fit the color palette.
Right. And it ties completely in what we were talking about earlier, in that you want to make sure that when you're sending something, especially like this, out to an audience, that there's consistency, and it looks like some effort was put into creating a correspondence, and it looks like there was an investment, time, money. Okay. When you start talking about consistency, one of the things that's always going to be important is that when you go to format, and we'll go there a little later, you know exactly what you're using from a color standpoint. If you don't have a DMS color, or in this case, I think it's RGB, red, green, blue. What you want to do is choose a color that you like, and as you're building the rest of your document, remember what the RGB numerical representation is for each of those. Making sense. And we'll talk about that. That's a good point. Green is not green everywhere. Okay. But, you know, to me, this is a great tool to very quickly have, because when you're working with something like this, you can put it in an volunteers. And in a matter of a few minutes, you can have your content produced. With this document, the same. And it automatically formats for you. So again, if you need a simple, quick, down and dirty calendar, really easy to drag and drop this right into your Word document, because the functionality is in Word. You can just add in whatever you need. So I think before I go into these links, let me very quickly show you where some of this is. So we were talking about these shapes. Shapes, if you go into insert and you go down here to shapes, click to open that. This sidebar, these are all of the shapes that are available to you. Arrows, and all of these can be resized. So if this arrow is too thick, you can make that arrow a lot thinner. And it's really a drag and drop tool, which means that all I need to do is to choose something like this arrow, drop it in, and just that quickly with shapes, you can make major adjustments in what you're doing. And as you saw from that list, there are just a lot of shapes that are available. When we start talking about translation, if I take this same section, in this case, with this oval, what I did is I took a circle and expanded it until it was an oval. Again, under shapes. At this point, I'm going to highlight this piece. I'm going to go into review. And that's interesting because for some reason translate isn't illuminated. Let's try this again. Let's make sure I don't have too much there. No, that one I'll have to look into. But typically what would happen is if I were to highlight this, translate here would be highlighted. And then when I would click on that, it would open that up for us. But I won't delay that now. If we have time later, I'll come back to it. And for these various shadows, it's a matter of, in this case, going into format. And once I'm in format, I have a number of options that allow me to decide what I want to do with an image. And I've got a full range of options there. Of course, you have to understand what your image is supposed to look like. You can't just choose something willy-nilly, right? These are always interesting because these produce a mirror underneath, first mirror underneath, almost like it's sitting on an surface in a reflection. But again, that functionality is all built into Word. Now, again, what is the purpose for all of this, functionality? It's really the translation is to make things simpler, open up a wider audience. But the purpose for a lot of the rest of this is to be able to make your piece more interesting and more engaging to an audience, right? So we're kind of doing ourselves a disservice if we don't use the tools that are available to us. And again, I mentioned with regard to these shapes, it's a matter of just making an adjustment to your fill. And again, as you know, you got all your fill colors. So now, Jeremy, from your standpoint, consistency. So if I want to make sure that I'm working effectively when it comes to consistency with my brand, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to select colors. When I select colors, I'm going to, this is the color I have right now. This one right here. But I'm going to come over here to custom. Custom tells me that this color that I'm using has a red value of 255, a green value of 255, and a 0 value for blue. So now, if I want to change anything else in here, then I'm going to be looking to change it to 255, 255, 0. What that means is now when I come over, especially since I'm in the family, and I want to fill. Now, right now, this green as part of this heading in that first table is 155, 187, and 89. That's that green. But when I change that to 255, whoops, whatever. What did I do?
Now it is remembering the custom colors you've used, right? If you drop down the color section for the background, or as you pointed out, has that custom colors.
It's locked into that cell. It's locked in. So now what's showing me in this box is here's your current color green. Here's what you want to change it to. It's giving me that option. So I can very easily make that change to that cell.
Like globally, say wherever you find this color, I have to go through
255, 255, 0 RGB.
Yeah. So a theme document, you say, oh, I want to, and I don't know if Word has any of this support, but I want to change my palette like this automatically. I want to map this color onto this color. So okay, I'm going to, wherever you have used that green, I want to use that yellow instead.
I haven't seen where we could actually enter in an RGB for one color and then have that entire color everywhere it's found mapped.
Yeah.
That I haven't seen.
Yeah.
From my understanding, you'd have to individually go through and make those adjustments.
If you drop down the backlight and one of those color things up in the home, so
you want me to go to home?
You're on home,
okay.
Right? And then where they have the colors, highlighting color, for example.
This?
Yeah. You drop that down, no color. So somewhere.
Yeah, so it's under a different tab where he selected that. It'll remember the yellow in that document, so you don't have to type it in each time.
Right.
You can just select that yellow.
Right. So as soon as you've used it for any item.
Right.
Oh, I see what the question is. So actually now, if we were to go into this here, let's go down here. Now, if I go to fill, this is so small. It's showing me right there. This is the color that you.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't fully understand what you were asking me.
Yeah. The question I have is, if you have, say, you have a brochure, or you have a logo, and you have you have like 3 colors maybe that you use for all of your marketing pieces, and then you're sending out an email document how do you get to that where you've got maybe a funky blue color that's on all your marketing materials? How do you get that to your Word document? Is there an easy way to do that, or is it confusing and you have to kind of know something?
You know, one of the things about building brands in particular is to have someone give you brand standards. So if you're working with a designer, you always want to make sure that they're building a logo for you. They should give you the brand standard colors that they use in that logo so that you can use those in the rest of your document. And it's either going to be an RGB or PMS color. Now, RGB is something that you'll be using all across your Microsoft and a lot of other documents. If you're going to a printer, they prefer to have PMS. It's a broader range of options. So knowing those makes life a lot easier.
So in the back of your mind, when you're starting to do more materials outside of your general printed or because the other challenge is when your website, everybody's computer looks different. So the colors on your website. That's right.
The photographers, that's a big deal.
Yeah, I know. I worked with a printer and I've also worked with photographers. So I know, and I have a very good eye for color. So the printer I used to work for would bring things in because people would change their paper and not realize that this green that was on a shiny piece of paper now doesn't look. So they'd bring me like samples and go, which one looks the closest to that green?
Right.
So, but it's tricky because incorporating the website using your printed materials without it turning out not looking so hot. You know, all those conversions.
And what you're saying is all the more reason why a standard has to be set at some point so that everything can be a variation against the standard at most.
Right.
And people often
people don't even realize that.
Well, people often think, oh my gosh, how much is it going to cost me to get a logo developed? Not realizing that the standards that are part of that logo follow you for the rest of your business identity.
Right.
It can be really, really a great tool to have. Blue Ocean Logic's logo is 4 or 5 different shades of blue. And if we were to just send that logo out to someone without any standards in there, you get all kinds of variations of blue. So if you're going after corporate business, they're going to notice that. They're going to go, A lot of small businesses won't, but the corporate guys will say, well, every time I get something from them, the logo's a little bit different, right?
Well, the challenge is when you have an admin person trying to use these tools, which I've used Word a lot, and it's just difficult because to make them understand the importance of getting the document to look like you're showing the little tricks, and some people are really good at it and they can do that, but other people may not be, and you may in fact have a volunteer doing it. So you know, then that's a whole different. So we've got to, maybe you have to, show them when we create these documents.
That's right. And let's think about that for a minute, because nonprofits are often strapped for staffing. They could have any number of people that are working on a particular document over the course of a year.
Right.
A different person for each quarter working on a quarterly report. If in fact we can produce some of these standards that allow only the data to change and all the rest of the document to be identical, so you don't have to go around cutting and pasting and all the rest of that. Now that original document is something that whoever's working on the latest version of it, they don't have to even bother with that.
Would you make a template?
This is where you're producing something that's going to be equivalent to a template.
Yeah, consistent though. Like if you created a template and then say you have to do the quarterly newsletter, whatever it is, to your board, to your whoever. If you have that template, then the person can plug in the information without having to reinvent the wheel and do all the graphic parts, which are fun, and I love that stuff. But I
You don't want everyone to.
oh no, but I can spend hours because I just
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
You know, I did a Christmas video one year because I found out I had a video tool on my Microsoft. My husband's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Leave me alone." So like 6 hours later, I had this awesome video of all my Christmas pictures.
Okay.
But yeah, nobody's paying me for that. So I'm just saying.
Plus, you can make it different every time. It
Well,
doesn't really match.
if I did it today, it would be a different video,
Yeah.
even if I used the same pictures.
Yeah.
So, but that's because that's what I like. But my point is, when you come to these kind of things where you're sending out a quarterly board newsletter or something, or even an email attachments,
Right.
to be consistent is hugely important. And maybe you just have to take the time to do those templates, which nobody wants to hear.
Right. But your point about, I now have a website, a business card, a very rudimentary, all of these, and an email signature. The blues, I do not have a means of aligning the blue. They're all blue.
Right.
There are different shades of blue, but they don't really match. And I don't really know how to ensure that happens. But
If at all possible, use the same printer, because even though you might have a PMS or RGB standard, going to the same printer makes life a lot easier. Printers still have to match those colors.
Yeah.
And each one can be a little off. I've also found that when you start talking about brightness of paper, that'll throw your colors off. You go from 92 white brightness to 98 white brightness, and to 98 blue will be vivid, and the 92 will be in the bubble. So, but see, if you work with the printer for your business, if you're lucky enough to have somebody, and just for instance, Minute stuff on is good. You can go into that printer and say, look, I'm going to be producing a number of different files for my brand. I need to make sure that this stuff is going to be consistent. Right. And he will help you create that portfolio. So
it's an art and a science, because when they mix, the ink has formulas. So you put so much yellow, so much green, to get a certain color blue.
Right.
So because I worked with the printer, it's basically, you have to have somebody that knows how to mix the colors properly. And ink, by the way, is like gold. So if you ever wonder why your stuff costs so much, paper and ink cost a fortune. Ink is really expensive. I don't know why it's so expensive, but it is. And that's, so, Yeah,
if you want a blue,
yeah,
Blue Ocean Logic, if you want a blue, it's going to be X amount to produce 5,000 copies. If you want an RGB blue, there's usually going to be a little bit more.
Right.
Because he's got a blue on the shelf.
Right.
If he's got to get that blue,
right,
then he might have to get a particular ink to help make that blue.
Yeah.
So I've often, we've got a couple of printing relationships we work with, and the printers will often say, are we working against a standard, or is it just blue? Because I can get close to this color. It's a lot cheaper for a nonprofit client. But now I can't guarantee that next year when we come back and produce those posters again, that they're going to match. So you have to think that through. Usually for things like that, posters year over year, if there's a variation, it's no big deal. But if you're sending out monthly correspondence to people that's going to be part of a record, you want to get as close as possible. So if they're ever reading things from month to month to month, you don't have any major changes.
Or you blame your printer. Something comes up bad, even if it was totally on you. You go, I don't know what happened that the printer was ran.
might be your biggest donor. You don't want to do that.
No,
remember your printer is your in-kind donor.
I know.
I'm
teasing because they were really picky where I worked about the color, and that's why sometimes they needed an extra pair of eyes and would bring stuff to me, because I wasn't sitting there staring at it all day, because it makes a difference to.
So we're cutting to the chase here, because we start talking about documents. And you know, typically when we're talking about Word producing correspondence, everything is on white background. In this particular case, Word has the ability for you to change the pages of your color. You can RGB this as well. If you're printing, you have to end up printing it as a PDF to get it to come out as a print. It won't print edge to edge or colored background like this for the entire document. But at the same time, this could be a more interesting looking piece of correspondence to send to someone than something that looks like this that they get all the time, right? Again, if you were going to page layout, you can go into layout. You can actually find where it gives you an option to choose a color for a page. And this border is an accent piece that I put in. And that border can be whatever color you're interested in putting on there too. It's got all the same color options. And that's also in page layout as well. You can change the thickness of that border or the color of the border. Just to touch on that for a minute, I'm going to layout. Interesting. And some things I have to a little slow because Rita's running a different version of Microsoft than I am. Let's go into home. And then I'm going to go over here to go down to borders and shading. And then I'm going to go here to page border. I'm going to choose, here's our yellow that we chose before, 255, 255, 0. Choose that as my color. And then select. Let's make it a 1. Now let's go. Took it out, didn't it?
It's there, it's just very low.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's really funny. But that's how quickly you can go in and make those particular adjustments. I put this together as an example of a finished document where I cut and pasted and brought in the calendar that we had from before. And again, this calendar is not linked, but it can be modified very easily, which means that from month to month or week to week, somebody could very easily go in and just make modifications to that calendar, put in what's new for the week, for the month, and then send the same document out without necessarily changing a lot of the rest of the content. And then down here at the bottom, though, I've got in Excel pie chart. And this pie chart, we haven't really talked a bit about Excel. Let's go to the beginning of the Excel piece and let's talk about this. So if in fact I'm looking at capturing some data like what are the projected December charity event revenues for 2018? In Excel, as we were talking in our first session, we end up building a table and then clicking on our chart wizard and selecting pie chart. And of course, it produces one of these nice pie charts with a little wiggle in it. This has some enhancements to give it a 3-dimension. Notice that it's also got the shadow built into that. It's not a flat chart, it's a dimensional chart. So now that I've actually put in my data, used the chart wizard to produce this chart, I can simply copy this chart and place it any number of places within Microsoft's other applications and place it in a way that's linked. And it will then create what's called a macro link, meaning that as long as all of those links reside on this tool, meaning as I'm creating these different linked pieces, this tool is remembering all of this in Microsoft. Then when I change the master, which is here, it will change all of the other pieces down the road. So for instance, where we were before and we were looking at this piece, and let's say that
It's an interesting history with this stuff. What they used to call OLE, object linking and embedding, was something they did like really early in the process, and it became a whole standard, COM, right, which was like the whole generic software building. Now they've left that behind in theory, but it's like had nothing to do with, you know,
what we're doing now.
Well, no, I mean, what you're just talking about is object linking and embedding, but that Microsoft took that into a like completely abstract systems thing.
I guess what I was thinking about is I don't think it was ever envisioned down at the individual user conference table, create your own nonprofit brochure level.
Right.
When you do the chart, when you come up with your formulas, do you lock them so that they don't accidentally get?
You should lock them, but I wouldn't lock them like going into this presentation today, because if I ended up doing that, then
you can't access them.
Well, I'm manipulating some of this. Like now, I'm gonna go in and make some changes.
But I'm just saying, you have said helper person, that goes to your Excel, updates your document for you, or gets into your Excel to input some data. You don't want them to fool with the formula.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So in Word, can you like group objects so that you're moving things around, and then can I say, okay, that's a unit now, like group objects together?
You can. I can take this. Let's see if I remember how to do that. I can take this image we've got here, and under. Yeah, it might be. Yeah. Now let's see what I want there. Looking for select or select. Okay, let me get back on track to where I was, and then we'll look for. But yes, you can group, you can ungroup, you can realign, and we'll look for that. So right now, this is showing at 9% of total, and that aligns with what's here in my original file, 9% of total. In fact, to make this a little easier to read, so tickets is here, $8,500. Let's take that down to 65. Now tickets moves to 7%. And if I linked right, tickets is now at 7%.
Do all those numbers add up to 100%? Does it do that math?
They better. They better. Otherwise, I can't trust anything.
I'm not good at math, but there's a few things I know, and that's one of them. I had my husband ask me that one time. He's like, "How can you have 150%?" I'm like, "I don't know. It's good to me." He's like, "No, it doesn't."
So actually, what I did, because I started with this document, which was my end game. What I did before I got into that document is I produced a PowerPoint, and as you can see, the PowerPoint is also at 7%. And I produced that so that I could give you an example of how even a PowerPoint document like this, where we produce this in PowerPoint, so we can end up not just having our Excel chart, pie chart, but now in PowerPoint, since it's a presentation, right? We can add a lot of other things to it, a lot of other graphics, some things that are uniquely PowerPoint can be added to it. And again, we don't have to mess with the data. This is its own chart, so this can be inside PowerPoint.
So how are you creating this link object that is linked in some respects but not others? The data is linked, you say.
Data is linked.
So you created that in Excel and then run it in.
Yeah, the only thing I did is I took this Excel pie chart, and all I had to do is copy it. That's it. But then when I copy it, I have to
Special format, though,
I have to go in.
That's very interesting.
And now when I want to add it,
Is that a pivot chart in Excel?
no. So now when I want to paste it, I've got these options.
Special.
Use destination theme and embed. Keep
Right.
source formatting, which is where it originated, and
Right.
embed it in the workbook. Destination theme and link the data, which is what I end up
So
doing.
okay.
No, I keep the source formatting and link the data. That way, any changes in the source automatically makes the adjustment.
But it will reference a theme in your PowerPoint, right? So one of those options was use the theme for the PowerPoint instead of the theme for the document. Right?
Yes.
So in PowerPoint, there's a concept of theme that there isn't in Word. This concept of theme that I'm trying to.
Right. When you
know.
create a PowerPoint, when you start out creating it, it asks you for a theme.
Okay.
So you pick a certain style that you want.
Right.
You got lots of choices.
Right. Okay. There's nothing equivalent to that in Word.
Not that I know.
So
There's theme. I guess there are themes in Word, but they're for. I think it's by page or something, or by like when you do those charts. You can. I think you can pick it. I'm trying to remember.
It's so little. It's all used to me.
And I can't speak to whether there's a particular.
When I do a Word document, it's like type.
Yeah, no, I think there are themes in Word, but I'm trying to remember what drop down is under. I can't.
Right.
But yeah,
You can pick like the formats for the text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Styles.
the
Right.
style themes. But I think there might be a color theme, but I can't remember. Maybe that's only in charts and
So
such.
again, for PowerPoint, just to not have you take my word, let's bounce this back up to 8,500, which means now tickets is 9%, which means we've moved to 9% in PowerPoint.
You have to have both documents open when you do that.
It'll open the other
Yeah,
document.
that's right, Bob.
And then there's 9% in our Word document that we embedded.
I know more correct than I
And
thought.
here's the new one. The new one we just
It'll
pasted.
open the document.
They have to talk to you.
Yeah, no, that I get.
Yeah.
And if you send the PowerPoint to someone, it's smart enough to know that it's not going to collapse because it doesn't have the source.
No,
Right. It's
that's
smart enough to keep a cache of all the,
right.
essentially. It's embedded in the document, but somehow it knows when to update it.
Yeah.
Who you send it to, got to have the right application to be able to accept the make.
Right, but if I send the Word document without the Excel, right, it's not a problem. It doesn't say, oh, I don't know what the Excel object back there is, right? It has a snapshot of
Where I want to be careful though is because a lot of people move things between Microsoft and Google.
Oh yeah.
And stuff. Just
Sure,
don't
that
do
is the problem.
Google messed it up.
Yeah.
The formatting.
Yeah. Well, they now have this compatibility mode.
No, they don't.
It doesn't really work.
That's why I'm not liking my Chromebook.
Right.
And I dug up my other computer
Right.
because the older computer, because I go to work on in those Word formats. I'm like, no, Chromebook, not doing it. Very limited functions, and I'm used to all the ups and extras.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's pretty much what I've got for you. I wanted to make sure that we talked about how these things link. I didn't want to leave without us having a chance to talk about that, because it's when you understand the steps in it, it's such a simple thing.
So what were those options again? You can link the data, obviously, which is what you did. You can link, what were the 4 paste options you had? Destination themes, right? So that's in PowerPoint, you had themes. And embedded workbook. Keep source formatting and embed workbook, okay. So it's literally making a little copy of that workbook. Destination theme and link data. Okay, what's between that and the first one? Source formatting.
Well, this one is about keeping the source format.
Yeah, but it's not going to update, I imagine. So it's a one-time. Okay, we did the formatting. It'll update the formatting. Okay. And the picture. Yeah. Okay, that's the simplest.
When you save the document, when you're done, so that you're going to email it or print it or whatever you're doing, your document will still link with the Excel, but when you save it, how does that work?
That's one of the challenges that I had when I was opening this up today, because I saved it and sent it to Rhea, and then when we opened it up here, the links were wonky.
Right.
So there's something that I'm not necessarily doing right.
Well, if you let's say you save it to OneNote or one of those sharing kind of files, does it work a little bit better? I'm not a fan either.
I haven't tried saving it to anything.
I'm just thinking.
Great concept, but
don't tell my SharePoint Microsoft dude that, because I tried using it with him and I'm like.
Right. Well, see these.
Yeah. I've used it, but you're supposed to use it as a team. It's a team.
Right.
And
that. But even having the local and online is complete mess.
Yeah, I know. That's what I found. But my point is, if you did this in an office, say everybody had to put different data in that pie chart. So if one person's doing, like if I'm doing the events and I'm doing silent auction, so I'm give you a number for how many donations I got for silent auction. And so I could theoretically go to that one point, or if you do it in Google Docs, but it doesn't, Google Docs I don't think does all this stuff. So if you just use the one, that's the one that I'm familiar with. There's SharePoint is a technical, it's much.
Well, you know, you can relink these documents after you've sent them to someone. It just takes a minute to get it done.
Right.
Now, there's got to be a better way to save it so that your recipient doesn't have to relink these.
Right.
You're talking about collaboration, though.
Yeah, that's kind of different.
Yeah, for most of when we're talking about sending out correspondence to people, this becomes converted to a PDF.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So you're saying if you send the Excel and the Word document to someone, the links can get broken?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
okay.
So you're saying,
I mean, that makes sense. I can imagine what a huge problem it would be to like any kind of reference.
Yeah. Well, it
needs to know where to find, literally where to find that document.
Right.
So,
and if you open them both on the same device after you've emailed, you can relink them.
Right.
It just takes a minute to make that
happen.
Right. But again, our focus today is on how we actually integrate these tools to create the kind of correspondence that becomes engaging to people.
So you're sending it out as an attachment, as a PDF attachment. You're just going to convert it when you save it.
Or produce something that's a print document.
Right.
Something.
So it's it's no longer, you're done. You can't go in it. Well, you can change PDFs, but theoretically you can look at it, but that's all.
That's almost the point of a PDF, right? I mean, when I was sending out resumes, make it a PDF because I don't want anyone messing.
Well, you
with
can
this,
change. You can actually get in and change those, but you have to know what you're doing. It's
right. I mean,
not,
if you really want to hack the thing, that's a different matter.
You can lock your PDFs. You can.
You can lock your Word docs too, but that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, that's interesting. They can still save a copy, can't they?
Well, yeah.
Oh, you can, as long as it's an image, you can manipulate it.
Great. Yeah.
Right. Well, they're not going to take the time. It's just.
So if you lock your Word doc, anyway. Yeah.
Any questions I can answer? Don't give me any I can't answer.
we went off on a whole techie.
That's okay.
And then hang around.
So I'm interested.
Long, apparently.
If you, I mean, for a sell sheet, I totally get you want to have 3D graphics, and but it's incredibly kind of subjective thing. And personally, I look at something like that and I go, marketing nonsense, right? It's like for me, it's like completely. I just want to see a pie chart, right? I want to see a flat pie chart. Mm-hmm. So I guess you have to be really kind of careful about how you use that stuff because you can kind of people can have a kind of strong reaction to the way you've presented your information.
Well, if you're a data person, then you're not necessarily going to appreciate this because it's noise.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, if you're a real data person, you might not even want to see a pie chart.
Yeah.
Just show me the data, right? And this is where the people that are designing, going back to last week's PowerPoint discussion, they got to know their audience. But what's great about this is I start with everything that allows me to get in front of whatever type of audience I want. Because if my audience is a data person, here it is. If they need a little more visual representation, here it is.
Yeah.
And then we go from there into the PowerPoint.
It's very rare for someone who can just look at that data and get an instant sense of say that's extremely rare. I've worked with actuaries who can do that, right? And they'll say, "Oh, that number's right." It's like
Jeremy, if you were looking at this, if you were looking at a chart like this every month for a while,
I guess,
you'd be able to pick out an anomaly.
Yeah, I guess accountants can see as long as it's like a repetitive structure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this, and if I saw ticket sales were $80,000 instead of $8,500, I would say there's probably an error because a nonprofit is generating $80,000 in ticket sales. That's a heck of an income. So a real heck of an income.
Big 10 school.
It's a nice event, right? I'd really like to know. So, I mean, you can do it, but I'd really want to, and I'd be wondering if that was a typo. So, I mean, some things, especially this, since it's such a small chart, a small table. If you were looking at that, it would be like looking at the executive summary of a proposal.
Right.
Pretty quickly, you can hone in and go, wow. You got those kinds of sponsors. Need some more. Not enough sponsor money. The grant money is okay for the moment for an event. As a matter of fact, grant money for an event like that, $25,000 is pretty good. I'd be really thrilled at the concession sales for that event. It's like, wow, you sold $15,000 worth of stuff at your event. What are you selling? That's kind of nice. But you automatically know there's some margin loss, right? Because if it's 15,000 sold, then there's product that you had to buy. So the real great thing is this 25,000 in donations because that's free and clear money. That's people that said, I don't need to buy a ticket, I don't need a venue, and here's 25,000. So
makes the taxes simpler too.
And that is, that's no noise, and you can go through and pull that kind of observation from that.
Would you ever put these two together in your newsletter just to give someone a quick snapshot with the percentages and then on the same page put the dollars just so they can see, or is that overkill? Or
I don't think it's overkill. I think it depends on I think it really depends on your audience. And the reason I say that is because you're going to have to carve out enough space in your document to have that make sense.
Right.
And as long as you've got an audience that doesn't mind you carving out that kind of space, I mean, that's fine. So this is what that would tend to look like if we were just sticking it somewhere. And we'd have to reformat this.
So how do you recreate a broken link? Just have a right click and say find source. I know within Excel there's a whole way of managing links, but they can still be a real fast.
Yeah, you go into File, and then you go into Information, and you move a couple of places. You identify what the document is, and then you've got to open up the other documents, and then it asks you if you want to update links.
Right.
And then it will allow you to do it. Right. But it requires a bit of memory as you're going through there to remember what you're doing. So anyway, what I wanted to do is just to show you that you can include this kind of information in your document if you so choose.
I know I need glasses because I can't tell whether that says MN or MMMMM or
It says MMM.
Those are really small letters.
This is Laura Mepsom. Are you familiar with that? There's like this sort of
yes.
nonsense about it.
Yeah.
That they, for reserving text boxes and things.
Right,
website
bogus
template,
text,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. I know someone who can like recite Laura Mepsom something. Doesn't mean anything, right? It's
No,
not even
it's
for real Latin.
nonsensical.
It's just